Are you experiencing back pain that you can't get rid of? Getting migraines, vertigo, having trouble sleeping, and/or brain fog? Do you feel like your medical doctor doesn't understand your condition? Blair Chiropractic might be the solution you've been looking for. If you've ever been skeptical about this, the two doctors you're about to listen to were even more skeptical than you were when they looked into chiropractic work. But fear not. Get expert guidance from the blonde and the bald, Doctors Beth Bagley and Frederick Schurger. These two doctors have extensive experience beyond the healthcare realm and bringing unique vision and healing to their patients. What do you have when you get a biological analyst and an engineer together? Find out right here on another episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Welcome your hosts, Doctors Bagley and Schurger.
Hello, folks. We're back. In fact, when we release this, I think there's going to be, there might have been a 2-week delay. I apologize.
It was the holidays.
It was the holidays, and we're getting
us.
back into it, and then we had the snow apocalypse that produced no snow.
We had like a little bit,
Yeah.
bit, but
Yeah.
not enough to do anything. So today we're going to talk about, well, you said let's go down some rabbit holes, and boy, do we ever go down some rabbit holes.
Oh,
when
yeah.
We do, well, years of research that we both have done on not only health related stuff, but also geopolitical health always comes into play with that too. But
Absolutely. And
we've
I was
done a lot of research on that stuff.
And I was looking at some various articles because it as we're recording this, Dr. Fauci just gave testimony to Congress, basically saying, yeah, it was a lab leak. Although, interestingly enough,
he knew it first day,
the whole time, the whole
first
time.
day, and they had
yeah. There's again, rabbit holes. Before we go back to the Dr. Fauci stuff, Dr. David Martin, who is showing all sorts of interesting stuff. He's actually going down. He's a patent guy, so he goes down the patent path and looks at when all these patents were made. COVID-19, as it was being developed, was not developed in 2019 out of Wuhan. In 2017 in South Carolina. Or maybe I'm getting the Carolinas mixed up, but I believe it was South Carolina. It was already in process. So this is older than we want to care. It was first developed there and then studied, and then oops
leaked.
Any case.
Just around when election season's coming up, it's just a oops. The problem I have is the fact that we're even developing viruses.
Oh yeah.
Like, let's deal with the viruses that exist in nature and figure out better ways to effectively help people handle those. But instead we're like, let's put some HIV in here and some and let's make this all and make it to the point where it's harder for people to fight. It attacks different places, and it gives people lifelong problems.
Exactly.
If they don't die from it.
Or even just simple short-term problems. As you know, this folks, we started recording as soon as we realized we were going into an interesting direction, because Dr. Bagley makes the comment, maybe we should talk about what we would do if we were one of these people who had one of these just nagging, long-lasting colds that are going around. And we've got the list already of the potential things that are sitting in here. We've got RSV that is been like crazy bad.
Yes, it has.
We've got a nasty flu that's been bad, and then certainly COVID. The Omicron, one of the Omicron variants, is floating around. And what do we do? First thing first that either of us would do if we've got one of these lingering colds is try to figure out, how can I get adjusted?
Yes. Am I out of alignment? If I am, let me get in alignment, because
exactly.
I don't get sick very often. I know you
Nope.
don't get sick very often either. And it's not just like, I'm so lucky. It's that we work on it. And one of the
Exactly.
things we do is make sure we're well adjusted. And occasionally, like this week, I needed 2 adjustments. I needed a C1 and then I needed a
Mhm.
C2. And good thing I got adjusted because today a little sick kid coughed right into my face.
Oh, nice. Nice.
I mean,
That's
he's only like 4,
it's
but
a good,
I was just like, okay.
it's a good way to boost the immune system. I mean,
I
you
was
got to
like, I
start.
think I don't know if my immune system can fight that. I think it might start
I think
reacting.
it'll be fine. You'll do well. Um, but you know, any of this stuff is, you know, we've got all of these bits and pieces floating around, um, and we like to think that, you know, we've got the best, you know, knowledge about what is, you know, what you can do for health, and certainly getting your head on straight is going to be a huge benefit, to making sure you have a good, strong immune system. I still joke
Mhm.
about the old timer here, in Springfield. He used to do, um, you know, he was a 1940s grad of Palmer right after the war, right after World War II. That was his GI Bill paid for his time at Palmer. And, you know, several years later, early 80s, he goes in for a surgery. He's been under this care, um, you know, second generation chiropractor. He goes into the hospital, and, you know, that, you know, after a botched surgery that basically gave him an infection, he is sitting upstairs, when they take the blood to go down to the lab to see what his white cell count was. And the doctor who, you know, you always have a pathologist on boards of these hospitals who report back to the CDC for various data, because, you know, that's how they collect all their data. Um, and that pathologist looks at the data and says, "Wow, I've never seen a white count that high." And the guy who took the labs basically said, "Yeah, he's up in room 314 or something like that." And the pathologist's response was, "What? He's still alive?" Uh, and I don't know if Doc, you know, I think he was of the opinion at that point. I'm going to hold, you know, personally, me, if I'm not feeling well, if I've got a fever, when I was over in India, I was running a fever for a couple of days, and right before we traveled, they asked if I wanted any antibiotics, and I said no. I think if Doc had a sepsis style infection, he would have accepted antibiotics at that point in time. But,
Yep.
and I would too. But at, you know, at a lower level, if your body's able to deal with it, those antibiotics, you know, especially if it's a viral type thing or if it's a microbial thing, as in my case, um, that just takes time to run its course.
Yeah. And
So,
even to this day, like many people with strep throat will say, well, the only way to get rid of strep throat is with antibiotics. And I beg to differ. There's definitely,
aside from the fact that most strep throat is viral, did I say that out loud?
yeah. And
Yeah,
even if it is bacterial, right? Yes, antibiotics will knock out a strep throat
yeah.
infection. It absolutely will. But
What else is it knocking out?
all of your gut bacteria.
Yeah.
And this is the problem, is that if we rely, again, if I have gangrene and I'm going to lose my hand, yeah, I'm going to accept antibiotics. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to get to that point where they're going to have to like amputate my arm. But one of my hopes is that I hope to never be on antibiotics ever again in my life.
Same.
That's one of my goals. Now, I'm not crazy. I'm going to take them if I'm not going to die on that hill. But like even my kids, if they get an infection or if they get some health thing going on, that's not the first place we run. We're not going to run and try to get antibiotics.
Sure.
And my kids have barely been on antibiotics, like two instances, and they're 14 years old. Where when I was a kid, I can't tell you how many times I was on amoxicillin. I was probably on
Oh,
amoxicillin 20, 30 times in my childhood
absolutely.
from any time I had a throat thing or ear infection. And my mom was the daughter of a chiropractor, so she probably
Yeah,
didn't listen all that well.
something
But
didn't carry over.
that's okay.
But you know, and it's interesting because as you were saying that, two different thoughts came into my mind. One about one of my patients who was in today. She needed to get adjusted. She's an MS case, and she was the only one of her family who got sick, and she knows her immune system is sort of on the weak side. And I asked her, well, what did you eat that might have spiked your blood sugar over the holidays? Because it was after the holidays.
Yes.
And this is the worst part, is everybody wants, I have a family of teachers, like my family is a bunch of teachers, and they want to blame the kids for their poor health. And then I sit back and I look at them and I'm like, I know what you eat.
Yeah.
I used to eat that stuff. I don't eat it anymore. And they're blaming the kids on the sugar that is, raising their insulin, that is reducing their immune system. And, it's like, oh yeah, it was the kid that did it. It's like, yeah, the kids have problems, but the kids are probably actually going to help you have a stronger immune system, because theirs just runs through everything and burns stuff out.
Yeah, and that's just like the kid who coughed on me today. I joke. I was like, well, no, I'm not worried. I honestly don't think I'm going to get sick from that.
As long as you didn't lick it up.
I was like, no, I'm not going to, I don't lick door handles to try to test my immune system. But,
yeah, no.
But we do touch feet all day long. Hey, doc, we touch feet all day long.
I have things that go over the feet.
Yeah,
so.
whatever. You're still,
I'm still
there's still crossover.
I am very sensitive to whose feet, when I'm touching feet, and I tell people, don't step in dog poo or cat poo.
And it's happened.
And quite honestly, I'm just like, yeah, we're taking these shoes off. You stepped in something. Honestly, horse manure, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know why. The Amish patients, clearly, they have horses and there's manure. Something about horse manure I do not have a problem with, but dog poo and cat poo, right out. I mean, I'm not
any
saying
poo. We don't want any poo.
We don't want any poo.
No poo.
But
but just for people who listen to the podcast, what we're talking about is, as chiropractors using the Blair upper cervical technique, we test leg lengths to help us determine if someone needs an adjustment or not.
And again, it's a functional. We should clarify, it's a functional leg length to see what's going on, because one leg, as you lay on the table, one leg tends to draw up because of the body imbalance that is inherent from your neck being out of place. Absolutely. And that's, so we're looking at really a functional imbalance in the entire spine.
I call it a global misalignment.
Exactly. So any case, that's what we're doing. That's why we're touching feet. It's not because we have some weird fetish. Thankfully.
I mean, if you did,
there's some
fine.
people. Yeah.
It's fine,
it works
doctor.
out.
It's okay if you want to, you can admit it to all of the listeners. It's fine.
No. But here's, and this will get back to, or get to the article that I just pulled up here a little bit ago. I had another patient that I can't remember why she had to be put on steroids. But she's diabetic, and she was put on steroids, and she did a round, and then that round of steroids actually skyrocketed her blood sugar. So she was
anyone who's diabetic, if you're going on, it will absolutely skyrocket your blood
anybody. It's going to do that.
I've only been on steroids like once with poison
right,
ivy,
but it will naturally do that because of the relationship between the steroid and insulin. So it's going to go back and forth. It's going to cause some things to go crazy and haywire. So it can cause problems. And in this case here, an actual diabetic was even more haywire, and because she's paying attention to it. Whereas as soon as she got off the steroid, she shouldn't have been put on the steroid for this problem in the first place. It's coming back down. She got all her blood work done, and her A1C today was a 6.1. So, it's moving in the right direction. But she was having a lot of aches and pains. She's a little bit of a fibrous style patient. And I told her, she likes making soups. She's making soups like crazy. I told her, add more beef to it. She did. And she didn't even add that much beef to her mixes and such. In 3 days, she was feeling better. Like all her joint aches and pains already gone, which is a testament to how how easy it is and how fast just putting real food, especially higher quality protein like a beef into your diet is going to make a huge change in what you're doing versus, hey, I'm going to go reach out for another pill or medication that has side effects. So,
yeah, so we all humans have the ability to heal. All it takes is we need the right building blocks, and building one of them is protein, a high quality protein like beef. And there's there's low quality proteins like soy.
Yeah.
That is trash protein. If you are taking a supplement right now or a shake, if you've got a shake in front of you and you're like, what kind of protein is that? And it's soy protein, trash. It's just
most of these vegetable proteins are not great. Everyone's like, oh, they're so much better for the environment. Do a deep dive. You're probably having more chemical processing right off the bat, but it's not even just that. As they do, amino acid profiling, which is probably, we've made dietary changes and dietary choices based upon fats, proteins, carbs, and calories, and figure out, if it fits your macros, then you're fine. You can do whatever you want. So if you're getting all your protein and you're not caring about your carbs, yes, your carbs can come from Oreos, which are technically vegan, but they're not.
It's funny how addicted I am to sugar, and I'm off sugar right now, but
Yeah.
the minute you said Oreos, my mouth went,
oh yeah. You just know.
I was like, I want it. I want one. Because it's so good. Actually, I really like the Trader Joe's better than Oreos, but still. But that sugar addiction for me is so strong.
It's
I
there.
literally like Pavlovian dog mouth. I can taste it.
Isn't it horrible?
It's horrible.
And if you just went and said, all right, I'm going to create a diet based upon carbs, fats, and proteins, you could fit Oreos into your mix, and you could figure out a way to do it. But the problem ends up being it is missing nutrients.
Yes.
That you'll end up being hungry for later. Had another patient, she was saying she made from scratch a not chicken pot pie, beef pot pie or something like that. And she was still feeling peckish and hungry afterwards. And what she needs to do to sort of overcome that is eat more meat. She's craving protein. If you're still hungry after you finish dinner, it is not because you need dessert. It's because you didn't eat enough protein 9 out of 10 times, or you didn't get the right supplement, or you didn't get the right nutrition in the food you ate. A lot of these foods, they're empty calories. They do not have the vitamins and nutrition that you need, including amino acids that will give you the proper, proper nutrition. I hate using that word to define what we're doing, but to fill you up 9 out of 10 times, if you get enough protein in your diet from animal sources, you're going to feel great.
So let's say a patient said, well, I went and saw a nutritionist,
right?
And the nutritionist told me that I need whole grains and I need blah, and we know the standard American nutrition diet, right?
Right.
Which is pro-inflammatory and honestly pro-diabetic. It creates more diabetes. So let's say there's someone who is struggling to get protein in, and we know that drinking protein like a protein shake isn't the ideal form, but they need to get protein in. What type of protein would you recommend to them?
It would have to be, you'd have to do a whey protein.
Okay, that's what I was going to say too.
Hands down, you can, whey is, most of the whey protein out there is pretty clean. I mean, there are brands that are a little bit, they say they're cleaner than others. But
I mean, I know there's some that say they come from grass-fed cows and those type of things.
I've tried the grass-fed whey. I didn't notice a difference. And oftentimes it's hard to get. That was my other problem is if I can't get it consistently easy, and I'm talking about Now Foods. I love them. I think they are a great company and product manufacturer. But I've had, they've had supply chain issues as everybody else has. So if you can't get it, it's not, even if it's the best thing in the world, it's not worth it. There are a couple of manufacturers out there that are doing like some sort of hydrolyzed beef protein.
Yeah, I've seen that too, but I just don't know
And
where
again,
to even get it.
I've tried it. I don't know if I'm crazy about it. You can always do a casein protein, not a casein, egg protein. You can do casein protein too if you have problems with whey. Some people do. But you can do an egg protein. Just make sure definitely buy a high dollar, high grade egg protein, because the low dollar egg protein, you will not have friends. Even the gym bros are going to be like, nope, you are way too gassy for me.
So, and the other thing I think to make sure that people are listening is to look at what they've added to it. So you've got your whey protein, and are they adding artificial colors? Are they adding sugars or artificial sugars?
Right.
And that's really important, is you don't want like Splenda or Ace K or any of those things in your,
right. Well, and just the artificial colors alone, it is there is, I can't remember which red it was. Then they said this red is safe, and then there's another red that they said was safe, and now it's not safe. A lot these food dye colors are to supposedly appeal to your senses to say, hey, this is good for you and you're going to like it, because we do eat with our eyes first. Except they're coming off, they are all made from a synthetic chemical. They are all, what's the word I'm looking for? They're all oil based on one level or another. And I'm not talking
petroleum.
I'm talking petroleum based.
Petrochemicals.
Yeah, so it's not a good thing. I can't remember if it was the reds or the yellows. Both are bad. But yeah, you don't need colors. If you're going to do a protein shake because you need extra protein, shoot it. Do not look at it as, oh, I'm going to have something that's really good. No.
Yeah, it doesn't need to taste good.
It doesn't need to taste good. It needs to taste good enough that you can drink it down.
Swallow it. Yeah.
But it shouldn't be overly so. If you need something to make it taste a little bit better, either add honey or add glycine. Glycine is one of my favorite supplements.
Yeah, I add that to my tea every morning now.
Yeah.
So.
Has Mrs. Thomas to be, but has she tried glycine yet? I know she was.
I don't know if she has. I honestly, I should just bring her some so she can try it. But
yes.
Right now she's going full carnivore. So
glycine is carnivore.
Okay.
Yeah. But any case, no, I mean, she was having a problem. She made the comment she was having a hard time doing the carnivore, and I'm like, glycine, it is technically, and now I don't know where these glycine sources are coming from. I'll be honest. They are,
but it's an amino acid, and
it's an amino acid. So, and it's sweetness, and it actually lowers your insulin response. So there's all sorts of benefits to it. But yeah, no, I mean, quite honestly, if you're having a hard time getting protein in, eat more eggs. Eggs are great, especially if you
they're not very expensive. Even high quality eggs are not that expensive.
No, they really aren't. Don't worry about vegetarian. In fact, don't get vegetarian eggs.
No, I try to get, if you can't get them directly from like a farmer that I try to get the ones that say
free range,
pasture free
range, pasture free range. That might not mean anything, but the
it's
vegetarian,
better than it's trying it.
Yeah, and here's the thing: is chickens will eat meat. They love it.
They should. I don't want them to be vegetarians. I want them to eat. I want to eat all the bugs and
exactly.
All those scraps.
So you want them to, because you'll see better yolks coming out of those things. But it is so easy. In fact, I'm debating whether or not I'm going to eat 4 or 6 eggs tonight for dinner, because I have 6 eggs left in the fridge. Right. It's, and then I'm out of town for the weekend. But the question comes down to, do I eat 4 or 6? And, it doesn't make a difference as far as how full I feel. It's easily digested as things go, as long as you don't have an egg allergy. If you have an egg allergy, sorry about that. That does make problems.
Well,
yeah,
and I think the other thing that the what I talked to Dr. Ladd about, who's gone full carnivore, is when you do start eating mostly, beef and then some eggs and maybe some chicken here or there and that stuff, is that your body can handle so much protein that like your digestion changes in a
yeah.
way, in a good way, that you're absorbing more nutrients. So you poop less.
You do, and it's easier, and you also get acclimated to eating. A lot of people are like, Doc, how do you put down 2 pounds of meat in a sitting? It's like this,
Yeah,
it's
with opening my mouth and chewing.
but at a certain point in time, you have to work yourself up to that. I don't think your digestive system, if you sat down and said, all right, I'm going to pull the John Candy, I can't
Big
remember
96'er from
yeah,
the Great
yes, that's it.
Outdoors.
Yes, that is it.
I think it was called 96'er. I don't remember
No,
what
you're
it
right. I
was.
think it's the 96'er. And then you have to eat all the sides. That would
All
get
the
me.
and all the gristle.
The gristle is not a problem. It's all the sides that I'd have a problem with. If I could do just the 96 ouncer, I would do it.
Do you think you
But
could do that?
I would certainly try. I would do I would happily pay if I have to, but as long as I don't have to eat all the sides, I would be okay with it. But again, that's something I would have to work up to, uh, because that's a lot, that is several pounds at that point in time. I'm
Mm-hmm.
comfortable easily. Like I had a arm roast today for lunch, which was easily 2 pounds. But do I do that every day? No. I was sort of hungry today, and I will nibble on the last handful of pieces that are back at the house that I didn't get to. But I also ran out of time because I had to get back for a new patient today. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
stuff.
and that's when you are a person like we don't have a ton of time to eat during the day. Like today, I didn't eat breakfast like I normally don't. I had my tea and I had brought some protein and I'm still eating vegetables. So I had
Sure.
vegetables for lunch and I just scarfed down real quick because I was in the middle of stuff. Um, and I won't probably eat tonight until about 8:30, which is not that great, but that's my Thursdays. That's just how they
Yeah.
are. And I'm not complaining. All I'm saying is like, I still can, if I, on a day like today, can still make protein a priority, you can make protein a
Oh,
priority.
absolutely.
It should be the first, in my opinion, the first thing you consume on your plate. Like,
Yep.
if you are still eating carbs and vegetables, that the protein, if you eat that first, then you're filled up and then the rest of it's just the extras.
Next time we are together for a seminar or
soon.
something, hopefully. Well, no, because we won't be able to do it on the student night. But we should we should for dinner for the two of us, or maybe bring Jason and the kids along too, of course.
I guess maybe.
We hit up the Chinese buffet.
We're gonna kill it.
Yeah, and we show how what we're eating at the buffet is, we're focusing on stuff. We would show every plate and how we're focusing on stuff. My problem with the Chinese buffet that you have, unless there's a new one that you've discovered, is it's mostly chicken on the entire buffet.
Oh yeah, we're gonna go with cheap protein sources.
Because it's cheap. It's a cheaper protein. It's still a good, it's a better choice than, some things, but it's chicken and some, cheap fish. Whereas at the very least, the place here in town, and it's a lot of chicken on that one too, with a lot of breading, and a lot of sauces.
And that's another thing is those sauces have so many carbs in them.
Sauces, yeah, it's just sugars and seed oils, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
they at the very least have a tri-tip roast out most of the time.
Tri-tip.
And it's actually it tends to be on the chewy side, because it's been sitting out there and it's a little overdone, but it's fantastic. And I'll get a couple big chunks of that. Hardest part is cutting it because they don't have any proper knives.
You're gonna have to
'cause
bring
everything-
your own steak knives to the Chinese buffet.
Well, that's not a stretch for me, but that wouldn't be the first time that I have extra knives on me for eating dinners. But
So just an aside is, speaking of seed oils, so a lot of pre-manufactured buffalo sauces have soybean oil in
oh
them.
yeah,
And you can make your own buffalo sauce with butter and things like that,
Yeah.
because I'm a really big fan of like the hot sauce.
Mhm.
I love hot sauces. But I found at Costco, Primal, that it's
The
a
Primal
brand
Kitchen?
name, Primal Kitchen, and they
Yeah.
made a buffalo sauce, and I was like, and it came in like a 2-pack, and I was like, this better be good, because if it's gross, I just bought 2 big things of it,
yeah,
and they make it with avocado oil.
yep,
It is freaking fantastic. It
really.
is so good, and I
my.
was not expecting it to be good, so I've been making air fried chicken wings with my my Primal buffalo sauce.
Very nice. Save me a bottle,
I will.
because I don't see Prime. Well, I don't have Costco down here, and
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
It's
Well,
I mean, I was not expecting much, because first of all, avocado oil sometimes has a weird taste,
yeah,
depending on, where they source it from or what. And I still like avocado oil, but
Sure.
sometimes it's a little, they did a great job.
well, good.
And Primal, if you want to give us some free stuff, go ahead. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
We'll try it out.
Hey, so let's back up and go back to this article that I came across. This was
Yeah.
out of the British Medical Journal for Quality and Safety, published 2023. And what they were looking at is the annual U.S. burden of serious misdiagnosed related harms that either cause permanent morbidity, so some sort of permanent trauma to the patient, or death. So vascular events, infections, and new cancers. All age groups were there, and
So is this misses or this is misdiagnosis?
this is misdiagnosed.
Missed, like they didn't diagnose something,
Correct.
or they diagnosed it as something else, and then it could be either, maybe.
Yes. So they had, harms from inappropriate use or overuse of diagnostic tests, or from overnight diagnosis, over treatment, were not considered. So, this was an actual, like, they did everything by the book, and they still had errors.
Okay.
So they were finding things like stroke, embolisms, aortic aneurysms, myocardial infarction. For the infections, they were looking at sepsis, pneumonia, meningitis or encephalitis, spinal abscess, endocarditis. And then for cancers, lung, breast, colorectal, melanoma, and prostate cancers. And those 15 accounted for 51% of total serious harms, and the top 5 accounted for 39%. The top 5 misdiagnosed were stroke, sepsis, pneumonia, the venous thromboembolism, and lung cancer. And the number of people, Americans, that were becoming permanently disabled or die because of a misdiagnosis. Can you guess what it was?
Like the total number or the percent? What are you talking about?
The total number that they said died
In 1 year?
In 1 year.
50,000.
Keep going. You know it's higher.
I do. I was just trying to just tell us.
It's not 50. It's not even 100. No, it's not even
not.
200.
It's 200. It's 230.
No, it's 795,000.
Oh my gosh, that's more than I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
I was thinking maybe like 250.
No,
In
790
a year? 1 year?
in 1 year.
Oh my gosh.
Because of misdiagnosis. Now, what's interesting about this is this manuscript provides the first robust national annual U.S. estimate for serious misdiagnosis related harms, or permanent disability. So it's looking at both aspects of things. So they were estimating about 371,000 deaths, and permanent disabilities was 424,000. So we're not, we're not even talking, like you said, 250,000. That was your number for that, and we're already way over that for either category of death or disability.
One thing to point out here is the majority of these things that are being misdiagnosed are also things that people have created in themselves with poor habits. And I'm not, I'm not a victim blamer. Like, if you have a stroke, there's lots of different reasons for a stroke. I'm not saying that every single person who has a stroke is because they ate Cheetos every day.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that put me on this road to health more than anything else was sitting back and looking at my mother's side of the family. Now, mom and dad was practicing Indiana. Mom moved to Indiana, to start the family. But she grew up in the Cleveland area, and I looked at my grandparents and, love them dearly. But this weekend, I'm going to go to my uncle's funeral because he's passed away recently, but he was, the worst part is this head, I knew I was going to be okay because his head and my head are very similar in that regard. Apparently I had a blonde streak and he had a blonde streak, and then he went completely bald. So it was like, we knew.
Did he go completely bald with alopecia or no?
No. But the top went bald. But any case, there were very similar traits between he and I. But I also looked at the lifestyle they were living, and they weren't they weren't taking care of their health. They weren't saying, hey, maybe these foods aren't so good for me. Maybe I need to exercise more and work out more. And it's sad, that he passed. But his health wasn't great. His diabetes was bad. All of the problems. And the question is could he have made a lifestyle choice to make it better? I had another patient in today who was complaining about which finger was she complaining about? I think it was her ring finger. Yeah. Her ring finger on her right hand is really swollen, and she calls it it's arthritis. And I suggested to her, and it's bad, it's bad after the holidays, but they'd been traveling. They were down to a service in Effingham for something, for a friend of theirs who had passed. When I told her, try it for a weekend, try to take out the sugar and the wheat, just for a weekend and see how it feels. She's like, I can do that. Man, that sounds hard. Yes, it is, because unfortunately the lifestyle, not just the lifestyle, the way the food manufacturing is in this country, it's not designed to make you healthy. It's
designed to make your brain activate.
Yeah.
It's designed to make you addicted to it.
Yeah.
It's a feel-good chemical. It's the dopamine it release just when you eat something, and that Oreo, just like we were talking about. And yeah, it is hard. It's hard to stay away from that stuff.
But
it's not impossible.
How easy is it just to eat junk? Because it's everywhere. It's really easy. Yeah. But it's not impossible with a little bit of work to make your own food and to make your own dinner.
And save money.
And you do save money, especially in today's economy.
Yeah.
You can have a better steak at home than you will get at the store, and you'll be happier with it.
Yeah, if you go to Applebee's and get a steak for $25 or whatever it is at Applebee's, trust me, you'll have a better steak if you buy one and make it at home.
I've had those steaks. I lived on the road, and Applebee's, at the very least, I knew I was getting a consistent steak. It was either TGI's.
It's okay.
I can't remember. There was one place that had a really good steak, and but even, you know, it was either TGI Fridays, Ruby Tuesdays wasn't bad either. But yeah, there's a different quality of food, because they're trying to make a profit and they're not making much of a profit. So you're better off,
especially these days,
talking to a butcher, getting your own food, making these choices and saying, hey, I'm going to eat the good stuff, opposed to I'm going to eat all the junk. You know, did I love some of the Polish pastries that were everywhere in Cleveland? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have I tried to make what do they call poppy seed rolls? I've tried to make gluten-free poppy seed rolls, and
never turn out.
It's not right.
And that's if you are out there and you're like, I'm never, you know, I can't do that. I can't. First of all, yes, you can.
Yeah.
But also, if 90% of the time you do really well, and then every once in a while you mess up or eat a poppy seed roll or eat, at least 90% of the time you're eating really well. One of the things I run into though is the minute I do eat an Oreo, my brain activates and it kicks me into hunger mode, and then I'm hungry for more carbs. And if I give into that, which happens, then I'm stuck in that roller coaster of, well, just one more thing. And the next day, well, you wake up hungry the next day. Like I don't wake up hungry when I'm on keto. I'm not hungry in the morning. I don't wake up and I'm not starving and I'm in a fasted state. But if I eat carbs like I did over the holidays, I wake up freaking hungry. I mean, like I'm hungry. And I know that's because my blood sugar has crashed.
Right. And the worst part is because that sugar, because it's not just sugar, part of the problem is you're combining sugars and fats together. Those two are fuel sources. In nature, you would only have one or the other. You would either have sugars and protein, or carbs and protein, or fats and protein. Most protein does couple with fats, but you almost never get them together. And when you have fats and carbs together, that is a recipe for disaster for your body, because it has too much fuel that it doesn't know what to do with either of it, and all of it gets stored. Unless you are going on a
if you're an elite athlete and you're, you know, swimming 10 miles or you're going on a ultra marathon, yeah, you can handle carbs and fats together.
Right. But
most of us don't do that.
And most ultra marathoners, you know, you're starting to see more and more ultra marathoners who are going mostly carnivore, and they're just adding a little bit of carbohydrates when they need the extra boost, so that they can, make that transition over. If they are, it's jet fuel for them at that point in time, because they're properly fueled and they don't feel hungry. This is why road bacon is so good.
Road bacon. I just actually had a discussion about road bacon.
It's fantastic. Road brisket isn't bad either.
I would like to, I've never had any of your brisket. I would like to have some.
The last brisket I made was not good.
What did you do wrong?
I don't know. I think it was the fact that it was a grass-fed brisket, and the fat content naturally going to be low. So I think that one needs to even be lower and slower. And I need to figure out how to wrap it with a lot of fat around it. Because there's some ways for that to get.
So the grass-fed beef wasn't fat enough, is what you're saying. It didn't have enough fat.
It didn't have enough fat to properly render the way it's supposed to. So, so
that's a sad day.
It really was, because I had basically made jerky without slicing it. Now, I finished it yesterday.
You're like,
yeah.
Like your jaw hurts at the end of it.
It did. It really did.
You pay so much for their beef, you're not going to get rid of it. You kind of have to eat it.
It was still edible. It just wasn't. It wasn't brisket.
It wasn't like your delicious brisket. That
it wasn't just like melt in your mouth. All of that gelatinous, beautiful collagen is broken down perfectly. No,
I
it
know.
was
When you say
dry and
gelatinous, it makes me gag a little bit. It
sorry.
sounds gross.
Yeah, until okay. Juicy
Blech.
collagen. How about that? No, that's
Let's
no
call it
better.
moist. Let's just call it moist too. Okay.
I,
Let's just go full gross words. Let's just do it.
anyways. Hey, so let's go back to this study out of the BMJ. One of the things that Dr. Murphy, as he reviews this study, he makes a note that 795,000 people, this was the incident of diagnostic errors that resulted in permanent injury or death of the patient, yet it only looked at false negatives. Like you don't have lung cancer, but oops, you actually did have lung cancer.
Okay.
And false negative diagnostic errors lead to the patient's death. The study did not include patients who suffer a permanent injury and or death from the treatment of false positive diagnostic errors. Like we thought you had lung cancer, and so we treated you for lung cancer and the treatment killed you. But after your death, we figured out that you actually did not have lung cancer. Here's the question. And this may, yeah, as we think about what's coming up in the next couple of years, because they are threatening that we're going to have another outbreak, another pandemic. And now we are getting evidence to support that the last one probably was not as bad as they made it out to be. Certainly, as many people, less people died from it than they made it out to be.
I mean,
and
people did die.
people
we're not
died.
saying that
I mean, I'm not
people
saying
did
they didn't
but
die.
a lot of times it's the treatments that killed
Right.
them, not the.
Well, and it was again,
Not
we
all the
treated
time,
you, but incorrectly.
Yes.
And we treated you for a thing that we thought this was the proper treatment protocol, opposed to saying, hey, let's find a better treatment protocol. And you died.
But if the doctors that had the proper better treatment protocols were all silenced and lost licenses and all sorts of things, even though they had a better way to treat it.
And on top of all of this, we now know for a fact that the doctor who was in charge of effectively the program spent the past almost 4 years trying to cover it up. No, the past 4 years trying to cover it up.
It's 4 years.
And we've been lied to. How can we have trust in the system?
I think people don't.
And
I mean, obviously, me and you don't have any trust in the system, but I think people really have lost trust. Trust.
I'd like to say that, but I know some people
and not everyone
who got the most recent booster and got a COVID booster in one arm and a flu vax in the other arm.
One. Smart.
And it's like,
smart.
did you miss the fact that these things aren't showing to be protective?
They're showing to make it more likely for you to get COVID. It doesn't give you COVID, but it makes it more likely for you to get COVID.
Well, and on top of that, it's not protective. We are now seeing more and more doctors coming out and saying the data is supporting more harm by having these things repeatedly. And the question comes back to, as we started off today, what do you do if you have a cold that just won't go away? And what are those other things? Getting your head on straight.
That's number one.
And this.
But I don't have a chiropractor. Get a chiropractor.
Get a chiropractor. And if you don't have a chiropractor and you're like, I don't know who to trust, you can reach out to us and we will send you to a person who we feel is good and qualified.
We have a plethora of colleagues across the nation and world that we can help you find.
And then on top of that, if you're worried that you might have had an adverse effect from the jab, get on Dr. McCullough's protocol with the nattokinase, the bromelain, and the curcumin, which we have, in the Linktree links.
And by the way, don't take nattokinase right before bed. Or I shouldn't take it right before bed. Wow, that gave me just not great sleep. I don't know what it was about it, but I took that. Not before bed.
A lot there are definitely supplements, and here's the thing: is I know people who, if it keeps you up at night, it will put them to sleep, and vice versa.
Absolutely. And for me,
they are
that's
completely,
me. Not that I take NyQuil, but that's me with NyQuil. I cannot, when I was a kid and that before I knew any better,
right.
NyQuil will keep me up all night long.
Yes.
That stuff is the devil. So,
So
but yeah,
what you're saying is we just give you whiskey and you're going to be the party animal.
I mean, it has happened.
Yeah.
Not whiskey though, gross. So
We'll
yeah,
get scotch.
and his again, go on to Peter McCullough's
Yeah.
podcast website. I mean, he's got so much information out
Yeah.
there, but he's got a great protocol, and I think he's right on. There is even some medications and stuff that he's a medical doctor, so
Yep.
But there are ways to help detox from some of this stuff. But I was actually listening to a podcast. It was Joe Rogan.
Yes.
Was
that
it
was just
Brett Weinstein?
I was just going to ask you about that one.
Yeah. So the thing that, because I've known that there are autoimmune complications to the jab, but he explained it in a way that I think we can explain it to people here. And the explanation is you get the shot in your arm, and one of two things can happen: is you hopefully get it into the muscle, and it's still going to go everywhere, but it stays in the muscle. The second thing can happen is that it could accidentally be put into a artery or vein.
Yep.
And then it's this bolus of mRNA. I don't want to call it a vaccine because it's not mRNA shot into you.
Genetic engineered. It's a gene editing.
Gene. He said
gene therapy.
Gene therapy. There we go. We'll call it the gene therapy. Gene therapy. So then it enters one of your cells. Now they were hoping it was going to just stay there and enter the cells there. Well, no, it's going to go everywhere. And so let's say it happens to enter a heart cell. Now this could go anywhere. When there's an infected cell in your body with any sort of virus, your cells recognize that as a sick cell. And what does it do is the cells go to attack that cell. So now you've got many, many cells in your body, maybe heart, maybe your ovaries, who knows, that are infected with this gene therapy. They're creating mRNA, and your body then sees, oh, this is a bad cell. Well, that in turn is creating inflammation, it's creating scarring, and in a heart, it doesn't heal very fast or well. But in other parts of the body, it could also create the body now seeing certain cells as
not
foreign.
self.
They're not self. So if our body sees something as not self, what does it do? It attacks it.
Yep.
It attacks anything not self. Just like if you were to get a transplant of like a kidney, forever you will be on immune suppressing drugs so that you don't attack the kidney that is not self.
Right.
And that's the same type of drugs that they're having to put people on now, because there is an explosion of autoimmune, meaning not self-attacking autoimmune problems. And those include things like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, mixed connective tissue disease. I think that's what it's called now. That's a new fun one.
Yeah.
MS.
Yeah.
What are I'm trying to get all the,
but those are the big
autoimmune
ones.
Disease. There's lupus.
I was going to say lupus. Certainly ALS, Lou Gehrig's
that could have
disease.
some aspect to it. Yeah.
Parkinson's is going to fall in that category. Yeah, I mean, and neurodegenerative stuff is just going to get worse.
And we are just at the tip of the iceberg. So if you're listening to this, start doing your research. You cannot trust what you hear from the mainstream doctors. First of all, a lot of them just don't know because they're just doing what they're told. I'm not saying they're evil. Many of them aren't, but there are some that are, and they're at the top.
And there's only so much time to study and to figure out what's going on, because the fact of the matter is we've had 4 years of being told, no, that's not really a thing, or it's horse dewormer. And we just don't have, everybody doesn't have enough time to go down the rabbit holes to figure out what's going on. So You can watch, watch and listen to podcasts like this. Go through a couple of them. Don't just take our word for this, that, or the other. And again, we are not, we can make recommendations for nutritional supplements. We can't do for some of the medications, but we can also say, hey, look at what these folks are doing. What is Pierre Corey talking about? What is Peter McCullough talking about? I mean, most doctors, who are practicing maybe have half a dozen papers published. Academics, maybe have a couple hundred that they've been involved with. Peter McCullough has over certainly 600. It might be over.
He's the winner, is what I call it. He's the winner.
He's very much the winner.
He holds the trophy of how many papers published.
I think he is the most published academic clinician in the country at the time, at the moment.
If they haven't taken it all away from him.
Well,
because God forbid he goes against the mainstream.
Exactly. But
just remember, when we say mainstream, truthfully, it's the CDC and pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah. I mean, YouTube
and they're in together.
Yeah. When YouTube says at the bottom of this, hey, CDC says this about COVID. Get your most information. Yeah. And we'll get it for this one here. But the other thing, you were talking about Brett Weinstein. I've been following Brett since just about the time that they came on the scene on the Dark Horse podcast. They had just gotten out. They've got a great book, The Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century. Fun book to read, good stuff. It'll get you thinking about just a different way to look at the evolution of human beings, and how we developed, and certainly how we haven't really changed that much over, say, the past, couple hundred years, certainly a couple thousand years. So it's a good read. They are a great source, and they are probably one of the most critical sources on this information. Brett and Heather, his wife, are both vaccine advocates, and they're slowly becoming more and more. They're certainly looking at vaccines in a different light, more and more every day. So,
and they do not consider, neither of them consider the jab for COVID a vaccine.
They consider it gene therapy, and
they're right.
Considering that, and quote, the other thing is that spike protein remains in the system for, it's either up to, I want to say that the last time they looked was a year and a half, and it's still circulating. It's supposed to be gone in 48 hours. So, oops.
And that also includes if you have just COVID, you will have spike protein.
Yeah. And this goes back to this other paper, 795,000 people died because of basically, oops, we thought you had this, but you didn't have that, and that led to the negative outcome, opposed to overdiagnosis and overtreatment. Correct diagnosis that, if left undiagnosed, would likely lead to the patient's health, or non-diagnostic errors, based on a drug, based on they gave them the wrong drug or the right drug, and the right drug had side effects that they didn't consider, because some people consider that there are more medical errors and adverse drug events, causing more American deaths than it is saving lives in America. That statistic came out probably a decade ago is when I heard that. So
that's scary.
It really is.
But I mean, we both know a good amount of medical doctors and people in healthcare, and I don't know any of them that are evil and are trying to hurt evil. People.
They're doing their best. They're trying to figure out what's going on. If you have a good doctor, they are listening to you and having a conversation with you. That is the bottom line. If they don't have time to have a conversation with you, or they're talking at you, go find a new doctor. That's
honestly,
really
the good ones are hard to get into.
Yeah.
The good ones, if you find, this, Dr. So-and-so has a 1.5 year waiting list, get on the waiting list.
Yeah. Just
because
start.
that's going to be who you need to see, because it is hard to get in with them, but that's okay.
So let's end with a win here. I had a new patient start. She was in a car accident
Oh.
a couple months ago. And she hasn't been good to get in. EDS case, lots of aches and pains. She went to see another one of my colleagues here in town, and this is the one who is taller than you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And she was in this week. She was starting to hold her adjustment. She's feeling better.
Good.
We did some hip mobility work for her. She gets up off the table and all her pain is gone. She's like, I don't want to move. I feel so good. And then then she said she went to the bathroom a little bit later. This woman doesn't need to lose 5 pounds. I mean, she needs to put some weight on, but she said things moved that were giving her problems. So,
and that's so awesome. And
it really
I know
is.
this is the second time we're talking about poop in the podcast, but pooping is important.
Yes.
And
Maybe.
that's like part of your system working. And if you don't poop on a regular basis, or your body's not doing that, something is wrong with your nervous system.
Right.
Like your nervous system is not working correctly, because that connection between your gut and your brain is not working. And you should be pooping regularly, y'all.
It should be, and it should be all going out, and it should be cleansing. Anyways, we should not do, we can stop talking about poop, I think.
Why? I love talking about poop. It's the best. Well, Dr. Schurger, where can they find you?
I'm at Keystone Chiropractic here in Springfield, Illinois. KeystoneChiroSPI.com is my website. Find me on the socials, Keystone Doc or Keystone Chiropractic. Dr. Bagley, what about you?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. You can find me at precisionchirostl.com. Socials, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.
Absolutely.
Not Twitter.
We'll be back with another episode of The Blonde and the Bald next week. We should be back on our regular recording schedule starting this episode. This is back on.
So you'll catch us again next week.
And we'll be back next week. So everyone have a great day. For those of you in the snow apocalypse, good luck, and we'll see you soon.
That's all for today's episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you enjoyed today's show with Drs. Bagley and Schurger, remember, don't give up and just live with the pain. Come back next week and get more answers and solutions. Visit our websites at KeystoneChiroSPI.com and PrecisionChiropracticSTL.com for more info, and catch all the episodes of The Blonde and the Bald.